Hello. Hello. What we're going to do is to demo that how to set up the system, and we copy idea from Bitcoin and what? We copy idea from Bitcoin and generalized recently been called blockchain, and try to set up some system that help protesters to value free lunch, because most businessmen would tell us there is no free lunch. Okay, we're not going to set up system of free lunch. We're going to set up system that value those free lunch to help those protesters. In Hong Kong, we got people said there were 2 million people, 2 million citizens went to streets and did some wonderful protesting, but they're ignored. And it's a terrible thing that you get 2 million people protesting, but they are ignored. And the people said, those mainland 50 centrals, they always said, and they put those kind of sayings all over the world. They're talking about that those protesters, they get money to do those protesting, but actually, as long as I know, many protesters, students and young people, so they didn't, and they are not going to accept any kind of finance aid to do those protestings. Okay, and we know that many among those protesters, young people and students, they have not enough money, and they use their pocket money to buy equipment such as face masks and face masks need filters to work against those tear gas smokes, and this tear gas should be think as a kind of chemical weapon. It's very harsh, and no one can stand inside those tear gas smokes. It designed in chemical element is designed to make people cannot hold inside this kind of smokes. Okay, and so they have to buy equipment as face masks and filters and swim goggles to protect their eyes and to hold down against those tear gas. So those face masks and tear gas equipment will cost not very cheap. A proper face mask would cost about above 300 Hong Kong dollars, and beside the face masks, they have to buy filters and other things, and helmets, things like that. So many protesters are hungry. They use up their money, and they have no chance to buy lunch during protest. So this kind of system, what we're going to do is to show people that they can set up something, copy ideas from Bitcoins, blockchains, and set up system to share food among protesters, to help those people happen to use up their pocket money and have no money left to buy lunch. Because you know that a lot of small business owner and such as small restaurant owner, they do dining and catering business, but they are small business. they are willing to offer some free lunch, but they cannot offer too many free lunch. Because they're small business, they cannot support very big donation to their fellow protesters. But really, many protesters among those 2 millions, they are willing to donate a free lunch, and they know the value of the free lunch. These days, the free lunch would cost 30 Hong Kong dollars, about less than $5 US, to let a child get enough energy, get a decent meal during protesting. And you know that most protesters are willing to do this kind of thing, but they have no system to support them. So we just going to copy some idea from Bitcoin and blockchain, and show you that with the browser and JavaScript, you can set up this kind of thing and make sure you have all the basic element to do these kind of things. PKI, okay, basically we need to make sure we have public key infrastructure, that we can generate a public key, private key, and make sure the private key can be used to send the transaction, that the donator, the donation of the free lunch, the payer, they can pay with something, and make it into a blockchain system, and use public key infrastructure to send the transaction, and if needed, they make it hash, they make it trackable, they make it in the data structure of a chain, and that if needed, they can follow up those blockchains to make sure that their donation of free lunch went to their fellow citizens, their fellow protesters, their brothers and sisters, instead of those Popo supporters. Popo means route police of Hong Kong police. It's Popo. Please remember, they are Popo. They are not policemen. Nowadays, most policemen will not think Hong Kong police is their fellow member of police force. Not too many people think this way, so we call them Popo. Popo means Hong Kong route police. Okay, it's a common word, it's a common vocabulary invented this year, and during the Hong Kong protesters. Among the Hong Kong protesters, after 2 million people went to the street to do the protest, but Popo said, Popo denied their chance to do any kind of peaceful protesting, and used tear gas, rubber bullets, and all kind of route police equipment to shoot those protesters. And you know, in such harsh condition, if you have not a decent meal, it's very dangerous to do the protesting. Okay, so we are going to set up this kind of system. Let's see. Let's restart the server and run the server. The server is very simple. I showed you the server before, and this time, after the server gets running, we're going to see our first user. This user. Okay, this is the first user. We're going to refresh this page to visit our server and make sure he gets his public key and private key, of course. Then another user uses the system, he refreshes page and he gets his public key, of course private key, and we open the debug window to make sure we can see what happened behind the scene. Okay, the this server, he found some user. He found some user. The server support him some user. You can see he get quite a few public key. Wow, why he get so many public key? Okay, anyway, he get some public key, and he want to make a transfer of coin, the cryptographic coin, according to our clone of the Bitcoin idea. That is kind of cryptocurrency. So we're going to make sure every user has his private key and public key, and his private key is used to sign the transaction, and the transaction we're going to have a signature to prove that it's a transaction from payer to payee. Payer is people who have some money in their pocket and willing to donate free lunch, and payee is those among their fellow protesters and who's in need of those free lunch. And so payer, we need a system like payer to donate his money and contribute it into some system like a small copy of something like Bitcoin, and to make sure their donation goes to this blockchain, and his fellow protesters, his brother and sisters, enjoy his donation, the free lunch, and get enough energy to enjoy their protesting, okay, against the people's will. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. We're going to make the transaction happen. Let's see the code, how to make the transaction happen. Basically, this time we're going to make sure we can sign the transaction, okay? And how we make the transaction. How we make the transaction. Let's find the transaction. How we make the transaction? You can see we make an object. The object has property of timestamp. Timestamp is required by Bitcoin as our understanding. Bitcoin asks for timestamp, hash, and link those hash into Merkle tree data structure, and then they need to send the transaction, and we're going to implement the signature, the process about the signature, decentralized mining ownership transaction. Okay, this time we're going to do something about the transaction, and basically it's the first thing we need to do. If we want to copy Bitcoin ideas, we need to finish or implement things about the transaction. You can see we make up the transaction. We make sure we have payer, we have payee. Payer is to donate, the people who want to donate free lunch. Payee is people who are going to enjoy the free lunch. And amount of money means basically it's been set to 0, but payer or payee can change the value of the free lunch. If payer is about 30 Hong Kong dollar, it's basically barely about the payee to buy a fast food from KFC or McDonald's. If it's about 50 Hong Kong dollars, it's about $7 US, not as much as 7. Basically, it should be about 6 or 7 US dollars. And the payee, if he get $50, he can enjoy a decent lunch. Okay, let's compile this code and reload our page. Okay, reload our page. Okay, we use the debug window to see what happened behind the scene. We find the user. Next time, if we have chance, we are going to set up some more reasonable approach to find the user, to find those those people who need the free lunch. But this time we just focus on how we send the transaction and make sure we have a signature proof this transaction is from payer to payee, and it can be used to identify who's the payer. Of course, we are not going to identify the citizen's ID number or social security number. We're not going to do that kind of things. We just identify and prove it's from one private key, and it's go to another private key. Only keys, only PKIs, only. The only thing is we're going to show that it's from one key pair to another key pair, from one public key to another public key, and the first public key belongs to the payer. It's one of the protesters. The second public key belongs to another protesters. We are going to. It's all our purpose to make sure what's going to happen. Okay. Let's see if we transfer coins, what's going to happen. Okay, we select a pair. We select the public key to select a pair. It's not a very wonderful way to select a receiver of free lunch. It's not very. It's not the method that average citizen, average protesters want to use. Next time we're going to get easy. This time we just focus on the signature. Okay. Then we already select our payee, receiver of free lunch. We transfer the coin, and let's check the signature of this transaction, the timestamp, as it's required by all kind of blockchain system. Amount of money is 0. It's a little bit surprise, and of course the payer and payee can change this kind of things, and we make sure we have the fingerprint of those public keys, and it's not a real fingerprint from a protester who donate the lunch or from the protester. Any of them, we're not going to collect the fingerprint. This fingerprint is kind of vocabulary of PKI system. It means the public key's fingerprint, and of course, next time we're going to collect the position to make sure it happened in local. Some location, and the signature. This is a signature. It proves the transaction is from our intended payer to the payee. Okay, this is what how we make it happen, and we set up an object. It to represent the transaction, and we send the transaction. How we send the transaction? We use the package. We use the module. named Node Forge. Node Forge is going to do all these kind things. Last time we used KPI and SHA-256 module to finish this kind of. This time we changed to Node module because the cryptographic formula and calculations, it's by its nature, it attracts hackers attack. So it's better to reuse other people's time-tested module to do this kind of job. So this is why we changed to Node Forge. Changed to a new module because I found more people is using this module, and it's been tested for a long time. We hash them and make it and turn it into a hex64 signature to make it easy to be read with our debug console. The signature, you can see we get the signature, and all of the signature is digitals and letters. It's uppercase and lowercase and it has some symbols, but not too many symbols. Okay, and it has 64 symbols, including those digitals and letters, English letters. Okay. This time we show you that we can set up all the elements needed to start a system that copy idea from blockchain and bitcoins, and we're not going to support a system that invent a system that give you free lunch, because most businessmen talks about there is no free lunch. So we try to set up the system to value free lunch, okay, to be agree with those businessmen. And I hope I show you that it's easy enough to start this kind of system and copy idea from Bitcoin and blockchains, and it's not very hard. It's not as hard as some people think about. Once you can, if your fellow protesters can donate some effort to manage a few students, not necessarily very smart student. Average student is good enough to start this kind of project. They can focus in this kind of project with the spare time of a few weeks, a few weekends spare time, and start this kind of project, and then as we know that not all the protesters have money to buy lunch, especially they use up their money to buy those equipment, those expensive equipment, face masks. Each face mask might cost over 300 Hong Kong dollars, and it's roughly cost their 10 lunch, because if they want a simple lunch, it's about 30 Hong Kong dollars recently. But if they buy a face mask, it will cost them over 300 Hong Kong dollars. It's over 1 week's lunch paid for face masks to hold against those popos of Hong Kong Red Police. They deserve not to be called policemen. They are being called by their fellow citizens as popo. Those popos shoot a lot of TBS and to keep survive inside those tear gas smokes, you have to have face masks with the decent filters. This is why they have no money to buy lunch. One of the many reasons that they have no money left to buy lunch. And of course, their fellow citizens and protesters are willing to help them to get decent lunch, but they have no system to help them to do these kind of things. And if you copy some ideas and modules, and I once read that there are some modules, open source modules, help people to set up a more decent blockchain system. And you can set up private blockchains, but I believe this time we're still not using this kind of open source blockchain infrastructure as our start point, because it's not necessary to set up. Most blockchain not going to focus on free lunch, okay, but the protesters need free lunch, and they are not necessarily need free lunch by free. They need to their requirements might be to value those free lunch and to make a blockchain of free lunch, and make sure the free lunch get valued, the lunch get valued, and make it free for those protesters, for those brothers and sisters doing same tasks, try to finish the same tasks with them. And some people has money to support lunch, and some people have money to support equipment, so they can share this kind of equipment and food among them, among their protesters. Okay, this is the idea, and this is the code. Of course, you can get the code from the GitHub. Our code has been put into GitHub. Okay, thank you. It's all. It's to finish it's to give a signature for the transaction, and a little bit closer to the system to value lunch, free lunch. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.